like you can establish persistence in a couple of different ways, but it comes from an overall category of post-exploitation. So after you're on the machine, or I guess system, so yeah, after you're on the machine or you've already compromised the base user, usually what you do in this time is like what we talked about last week with forensics and proliferation and exfiltration of data that you want. This is where you would elevate your privileges, get more access to more resources, more files, or shared directories, or what have you, to possibly pivot in the future, or you want this for future use, period. So this whole thing can be summed up with, you want to use this box for whatever in the future. You don't know what for, but eventually you're going to use it. So establishing persistence just allows you to access it in the future. So there's a couple ways you can do this. Some of the most prominent ways, and actually the most prominent way, is using a backdoor of some sort. So this can be most commonly a reverse TCP shell that you can embed in multiple resources, which I'll talk about in the future. So today, the workshop was pretty last minute, so I just took some screenshots of something I did last night. I can definitely go over this in the future with something live, but I couldn't find any vulnerable boxes to spin up. So the tools we would be using would be Metasploit, and specifically in the Metasploit tool package, MSF Venom, which is something you can create reverse shells with, and the Mimikatz, which you can rip hashes from, NTLM hashes specifically from Windows devices, and PowerShell, period. Okay, so I already talked about a little bit what persistence was, and it comes in two types. So the first type is a low privilege user persistence. So you gained access to a box or machine. What's the user you have initially? It's probably going to be a user with not many privileges. So a low privilege user. You can do some nice things with this in terms of persistence, but not until you get a privileged user, you can do some fun stuff. So that's the other one. If we talk about the low privilege persistence types, you can actually attach a backdoor to a startup folder, claiming persistence from that, or you can actually edit a register key. So you can go into app data, and this is Windows specifically, go into app data and link it to registry so that every single time the user accesses app data, it starts up your backdoor again. So that's actually pretty often because that's where a lot of the system binaries are located. So privileged user persistence is really nice because you don't have to do any of that fancy stuff. You can possibly just create another user. Let's say you have an admin account. You can create another user, then you can use that user to log in. Of course, creating a backdoor service, just installing it on there and have it, restart with scheduled tasks. Or my personal favorite, attaching it to something like RDP, where you can, every single time you log on to RDP, it starts up this backdoor, and then you can log into it. Or just generally any service. So you can create a service, a fake service. You call it SVH host, and it looks like that real SVH host service. And when you load up Task Manager, but or your processes list, but it's actually a backdoor. It's really sick. You can do that with Metasploit. So, like I said, MSF Venom, again, don't have the workshop here today, but this is something I did yesterday. So you load up NSF Venom, and you, using the Windows x64 Metinterpreter reverse TCP exploit, this is just the shell name, it's where it's located. You attach it to your host's IP, so the attacker's IP, the one that you're using, and a port that you want to send it through. And then you just say, what's the file type? exe, because we're trying to exploit a Windows machine. And then the name of the shell. You would probably want to use this, use a more inconspicuous name. So something that's not shell.exe, probably something like Windows Explorer.exe, and then you change the file logo or something. and then you have it actually hyperlink or link to a like the actual Windows Explorer. So runs the shell and then opens Windows Explorer, so the host is not suspecting anything fishy. And then so then you just hit run, and then it creates the shell. Then you want to somehow transfer that reverse shell to your vulnerable host. This can be done in a number of ways, and I think it's the art of actual exploitation that we talked about previously. I believe Kyle a couple weeks ago did this, but if let's say you have access to both machines freely, right? You have the password of the other machine. You could literally set up a simple HTTP server using Python, then download it over in the other machine, which is actually what I did yesterday. Or you could, secure copy it over, whatever, what have you. Just bring over the shell to the vulnerable machine, and then using the exploit multi-handler, which this actually allows you to, when the shell is executed on the vulnerable machine, you have it running in the background here, and whenever it connects, you can actually use the box. So you have this running in the background, so exploit-j, if that's what you type in here, and what that would do is, I think that's the next slide. Yeah, right. So you would do exploit, it's running in the background. Then you open up another session in Meterpreter, and that session you would type use Windows local persistence, which is the persistence module within Meterpreter. And then you hit run, and you set it to the session that you set previously with the handler. You hit run, and then what it does actually is, you can read here, it installs a key on the Windows machine, so that whenever you start up your system, or it auto runs on the Windows machine. And that's the whole presentation today. It was really short because I didn't really have anything big, but thank you guys so much for coming and listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, because I do have a couple more things to talk about if you want. Does anyone have any questions?